nobody is breaking up families. Nobody is targeting individuals and making sure that one over the other goes out. That doesn't happen under President Trump. It didn't happen before.
President-elect Donald Trump's lawyer and soon-to-be White House counselor Alina Habba is out there just casually lying about Donald Trump's family separation. Not only did it happen under Trump, but it also continued under President Joe Biden. So, I mean, let me give you a little bit of a timeline, right? Back in 2017, before the DOJ actually had started their zero tolerance policy, El Paso had a pilot program in place where they separated families at the border. That included children. So, they didn't used to previously do that. That was not policy, but in 2017, it became policy. Under the El Paso program, adults who crossed the border without permission, a misdemeanor for a first-time offender, were detained and criminally charged. No exceptions were made for parents arriving with young children. Those children ended up being taken from them. So now, one of the issues here, of many, parents were unable to track or reunite with their children because there was no system in place in order to facilitate reunification of families. Now, you would think, wait a minute, that's got to be a big oversight, right? No. Not an oversight at all. In fact, that's kind of the point, the cruelty. Now, it turns out by late 2017, the government had been separating families along the length of the U.S.-Mexico border, including families arriving through official ports of entry. Now, remember, in order to claim asylum, you have to be in the United States, right? And you go through a port of entry. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter. You're still going to get separated from your kids. Even if you're there doing a legitimate claim for asylum, they still separated you from your kids. If you had your kids there, separated you, detained your children, and then in a lot of cases, they're gone. You can't find them anymore because they're not even keeping good records. So there's that. Now, by May of the following year, the DOJ did end up implementing their zero tolerance policy, which again didn't really have a whole lot of ways to keep track of the families they separated. Under that policy, undocumented asylum seekers were put in prison, and any accompanying children under the age of 18 were handed over to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which shipped them miles away from their parents and scattered them among 100 Office of Refugee Resettlement shelters and other care arrangements across the country. These children, again, hundreds of them, included infants and toddlers, were actually under the age of 5. In 2018, the government reported to a court that a total of 2,654 children were separated from their parents. So we do have some of the numbers here, but we don't have accurate numbers because, again, they're not really keeping track. This is just a guesstimate. In fact, the following year, the Department of Health and Human Services Inspector General actually found that number was not, accurate. There were thousands more children than previously known that may have been separated from their parents since 2017. The number of children separated is currently unknown because, again, we don't have the paperwork. We don't have the tracking system that was coordinated among the agencies involved. And that right there, by the way, is the reason that they're able to lie about it. Okay? And now apparently they're saying, well, it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. Well, I mean, how do you know it actually happened, right? I mean, yeah, we decided not to track it, and so therefore, if we didn't track it, then did it really happen? Yeah, it really did happen. And by the way, a court had ordered the government to reunite families, and since they didn't have the records, they couldn't. A lot of these families have never been reunited. Now, later on, by the way, the Trump administration admitted to a federal court that they had, in fact, separated children. And even after being ordered not to, they still separated children, about 245 from their parents and other relatives, and then 9 months following that order. So the court said, no more separating families at the border. And they're like, okay, sure. And then they separated almost 250 kids from their parents at the border. And by the way, what's worse than that, this is already horrific, right? But, would you look at that? Some of the children, while they were in U.S. custody, were abused. Yeah. Okay, I care about the children. Oh, we got to protect the children from the predators, from the groomers, from the people that would abuse them. Oh, it turns out that's ICE. Turns out that the federal agents, in February of 2019, the federal government received more than 4,500 complaints about the sexual abuse of immigrant children held in detention from October 2014 to July of 2018, according to the New York Times. Of the 1,303 cases considered the gravest, 178 included accusations of sexual assault by adult staff members. Those allegations included rape, fondling, kissing, and watching children shower. Jesus. So that's what's going on. No, we got to protect the children, unless they're brown. I see. Again, as I mentioned, a lot of those families who were separated, they've never been reunited. The family's literally ripped apart because they came here the wrong way. Mainly because, and I say the wrong way because they just didn't have the money to buy their way in. See, that's the Republican policy. Okay, Republican policy is like, look, immigrants. Yeah, we generally don't like them unless they're wealthy and preferably white. I mean, if you're not white but you still have a lot of money, well then we'll consider it, right? Because we really do like money. But if you're not, if you're poor, don't even try it. We will separate you from your children and then laugh as your children get abused. Oh, lovely. So that's what's going on here, okay? Now, look, obviously, they don't have the money to buy their way in because they're fleeing gang violence or fleeing poverty. They're fleeing political persecution. Or natural disasters where they may have had money, but they lost it due to a hurricane or some other natural disaster. Doesn't matter. And as I keep mentioning, the right-wing leftists have claimed that they care about children and that they care about children's mental health. Oh, really? Apparently, that's why you can't have critical race theory in schools. Because we care about the kids' mental health and well-being. Really? Well, it turns out research has found that forced parent-child separation and parental loss have adverse effects on child mental health and academic functioning. No kidding. Yes. It shouldn't take a study. It shouldn't take research to, figure out that, hey, if you rip families apart, you take kids from their parents, there's going to be a negative effect on the kids. Duh. No kidding. But no, apparently you've got to hammer that point home and point out their hypocrisy in the off chance that maybe you'll get through to somebody. All right. Although most likely you're not going to get through to anybody. Now, reports also show that children who have experienced parent deportation have been more prone to being diagnosed with PTSD. Oh, again, big surprise, right? Research also found that emerging research has indicated that parental detention and deportation increases risk for mental health problems such as severe psychological distress, anxiety, and depression. And another study suggested that enforcement of immigration laws poses serious health challenges and risks for lifelong mental illness in children. Not that anybody apparently cares. I mean, certainly the right wing, when it comes to, brown children, we don't care about them. Oh, no. Now, that said, I noted that President Biden also continued child separations, even though they technically got rid of that order in 2021. No matter. Still happening. According to a July report from earlier this year, 2024, from UCLA's Center for Immigration Law and Policy. Well, the Biden administration has taken steps to reunite children separated from their parents under Trump's zero tolerance policy. Customs and Border Protection still continues to separate families, most often spouses, pregnant women separated from their partners, and young adult children separated from their parents. Now, it would take an act of Congress likely to change Border Patrol policy, but instead of pushing for those changes, what did Biden do? He actually publicly pushed to be tougher on the border. So, look, at the end of the day, ghouls like Haba are lying to us, gaslighting us, and while they're planning to do even more cruelty. Look, the Trump administration, yeah, they're going to do even more separations in the border. They're going to bring it back. Okay? Because it's about cruelty. This didn't do anything to curb border crossings, okay? But it's not about that. It is about the cruelty. They think that maybe if we're so cruel that people will not come here. Great. That's exactly what we want to do. Yeah. Just be like the worst people imaginable and do the most heinous things as a deterrent, which again never proves to be much of a deterrent. And look, they plan on displacing millions of immigrants, okay, along with this, okay? And not just like, oh, we're going to be, we're going to separate families, whatever. Then we're going to basically round people up into camps, prison camps, and then try to deport them. Now, there's some problems with that as well. Are they actually going to be able to send them to other places, to other countries? How will they even know where to send them? I mean, that's the first question, right? And then, if they figure that out, what makes you think the countries are going to take them back? I mean, seriously. What are you going to send bus loads or plane loads of people back to Guatemala, for example? Well, what if the government refuses? Send them back to Venezuela, right? What if they refuse? What if they start shooting at the buses? What if they have to be escorted by U.S. troops? What are they going to start? You start shooting at the troops? What happens then? Right? Well, you're going to end up invading Guatemala? These other countries to force them to take back these refugees? What's going to happen? And there's a lot of questions here that have not been answered and will probably never be answered. All I know is that if they actually are going to try to do what they say they're going to do, that it's going to be an utter mess, a humanitarian disaster at the likes that we've never seen. Okay? And more likely, if they try it and it blows up in their face, well, at least they're going to have people like Alina Habba, who will be the first to get up on cable news and lie to your face about it. With the suspected United Healthcare CEO Slayer in custody, Fox host Laura Ingraham is continuing to clutch her pearls, along with her wealthy peers, and people who are not feeling quite as sympathetic about the death of a man who has personally profited off the suffering of millions. While at the same time, praising another man who did manage to kill a homeless man on a subway.
The Instagram posts from nutbag people, which I was sent in the commercial break earlier, crazy. Like, he's cute, and people celebrating this. This is a sickness. Honestly, it's so disappointing, but I guess we shouldn't be surprised. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And up next, the other big news out of New York, Daniel Penny. A lot of people think he's a hero, and tonight he's not guilty. My take next.
Nutbag people. By the way, a lot of people think that Daniel Penny, hero. So hold on here. If you're celebrating the death of a CEO, you have a sickness, right? Or at least if you don't have sympathy for a CEO, you have a sickness. But if you celebrate the death of a homeless man, and specifically the acquittal of the person who killed him, then you're all good. Oh, I get it. I get the rules now. Okay. So now, of course, he mentioned Daniel Penny. He was acquitted for the death of Jordan Neely, a homeless black man. Now, Penny is white. Neely is again, I mentioned, a black man who was put in a chokehold for about 6 minutes while other train passengers had captured the incident on film. Now, Penny's lawyers had argued successfully that he believed that Neely was volatile, right? He was a mentally ill man. He posed a threat to the public, and that's why he had to put him in a chokehold for much longer than needed to be. And so now, as far as being a threat, Neely was armed with a muffin in his pocket. So Jordan Neely was apparently a threat to the public, okay? But Thompson, the CEO, whose company denied a third of all claims, about 32% of all claims, was not a threat to the public. I see. How big is the body count between the two? I don't think it's talked about enough, okay? Now, as far as I know, Jordan Neely, he had some problems. Had he ever killed anyone? Not that I know. However, Brian Thompson is indirectly responsible, I think, for the deaths of thousands of people. Okay? Under Thompson, remember, United Health Group started using AI, so-called faulty AI programs, which denied up to 90% of claims for people on Medicare Advantage plans. These are elderly people, these seniors, right? Now, in fact, it got so bad that the company was sued by the family of two now deceased customers who alleged the insurer had knowingly used this faulty algorithm to deny elderly patients coverage for the extended care deemed necessary by their doctors. Okay? Like I said, in addition to denying thousands upon thousands of claims, okay, 32%. But you can see clearly here that, only one person's death is considered a tragedy to these people, to people like Ingram. Okay? So that's Brian Thompson. Oh boy, well, what a terrible tragedy. And the people that are celebrating they're sick individuals. But hey, Jordan Neely, he deserved it. Really. One killer is lionized while the other is condemned. Do you want to know why that is? Because it's partly about who the victim was. Okay? Laura Ingram looks at Brian Thompson and immediately connects with him. Why? Well, because he's white and wealthy. I mean, she looks at Neely, though, and sees, oh, what, he's black, he's poor, and he's got mental issues. Obviously, that man deserves no sympathy whatsoever. Oh, no. Now, look, it's not just race, it's not just class, there's an intersection between those things, right? But, consider, had he been wealthy, all right, would there still be a lot of sympathy for him? Perhaps. But then again, if he were wealthy, then Neely probably would have been able to afford mental health care and to not have to be on the street, and maybe then he wouldn't be dead. Both race and class are obviously quite important factors here. And look, even if you are a wealthy black man, that still doesn't insulate you from biases in the system, okay? Doesn't mean that you won't necessarily be targeted. We've seen this in plenty of occasions where, black men who are doing fairly well for themselves, all right? Or fairly wealthy or higher class or upper class, I should say. And what? They get the cops called on them for breaking into their own house. What? So we see that. But that said, having money does tend to help you avoid being murdered by the police. Okay? Much more than being, again, a poor black man. Because if you're a poor black man in America, you're screwed. All right. Now, the other thing here that I'm seeing is how these right-wing millionaires, that's what Laura Ingram is, okay? She's a right-wing millionaire. Boy, does she hate the idea of vigilantism. Oh, man. Unless, once again, it is targeted at poor people. Then, not such a bad thing. Remember, Daniel Penny didn't have to intervene. He intervened because he thought, oh, this guy might be a threat. Well, that's taking it upon himself as being a vigilante, right? So he took it upon himself to put Jordan Neely into that chokehold. You know, just to prevent him from doing any violence, because he's a dangerous black man. All right? But, you know, vigilantism, in that case, totally fine. Vigilantism, if you're, you know, Kyle Rittenhouse, and you're just trying to prevent, I don't know, robbery at a gas station or something, because you think these black people that are, you know, out there protesting police violence are, oh, dangerous, so I better go to this Black Lives Matter protest and actually run into a couple of white people who, you know, end up starting a fight, and then, of course, he ends up getting into that fight and then shooting three people, I should say, killing two people in self-defense. Well, I mean, you know, he played vigilante, but that's okay. That's okay. But if you're, you know, Luigi Mangione, and you play vigilante, and your target happens to be a rich white man, well, that's the problem. Oh, we can't accept that. Nope, not at all. Or you could just have a standard rule that, hey, we shouldn't accept vigilantism from anyone, right? And I'm not saying that I do, right? I'm just saying, with this case, it's not like there's not a reason, okay? And there's not like there's not an ill will towards corporate America, which, again, according to police, Mangione had. That's why he played vigilante in the first place. In his manifesto, he wrote, quote, "I do apologize for any strife or trauma, but it had to be done. These parasites had it coming." Talking about healthcare CEOs. Talking about the extreme wealthy in this country, okay? Now, look, I could sit here and I could find hundreds of instances of people like Laura Ingraham, people on Fox News, or just random right-wingers that are, you know, we're celebrating the deaths of people like Jordan Neely or Trayvon Martin or George Floyd, you know, and the hundreds of other poor black men that are gunned down by police. Okay? They'll say the same thing, too. They had it coming. Oh, did they? Oh, they had it coming. Michael Brown had it coming. Had it coming. But at the same time, you think, wait, if you threaten power, if you threaten the wealthy, then, well, oh no, they most certainly did not have it coming. Oh, so you kill people with paperwork, then, well, that's way different. Is it? The end result is still pretty the same, okay? Just because it's a systemic way of killing people, and you're enriching yourself through these people's deaths by not paying out the claims, the money they owe, or that, you know, you owe them because they had paid you, held up their end of the bargain by paying your exorbitant sums, and then actually go to use the insurance that they paid for, and you say no, even though it's medically necessary. How's the end result any different? You have killed them. You have taken their lives, their livelihoods away from them by denying them medical treatment. I don't know. They see it much, much differently. And again, it comes down to power. It comes down to class. Okay? If you threaten power, if you threaten wealthy people, then they're going to and you've seen it, they're out there condemning you. And it's because they are the mouthpieces of the wealthy. So just consider that. I'm not saying that what he did was right. I'm not saying what Penny did was right. I'm not saying what Mangione did was right. Okay? But understand that we have gotten in this country to a point where people can see what he did, as like understandable. because of how much the system itself is crushing everyday people. So, with that in mind, it's no surprise to see the people who represent the system itself pushing back like this. It is all about protecting one's class-based interests. Again, it's not left or right here. This guy had some right-wing views, okay? Listen to Tucker Carlson, okay? But also had some mixed views, right? Like, environmentalism. I believe in climate change and all that stuff. And I believe the CEOs are screwing us over. It's not right or left at this point. It's 99% versus the 1%. MSNBC's Morning Joe continues to do what he always does, punch left. This time blaming progressives for allegedly passing laws that allow for homelessness.
Mika, the mental health system in this country, again, is just grossly insufficient. Whether you're talking about New York, whether you're talking about Florida, whether you're talking about California, you have people walking around on the streets that have mental health issues. And the fact that some progressives have said basically, oh, well, we're just, let's pass laws that allow homelessness. You look in San Francisco, you look at Los Angeles, as we've said all along, and Rev and I have said all along, there's nothing compassionate about that.
No.
There's nothing progressive about that, leaving people with mental health problems on the street. No, we need to spend more money.
There's nothing progressive about leaving people with mental health problems on the street. Yeah, well, I agree. But here's the thing. That's not the progressive plan. Okay. What the progressive plan is for healthcare is to have universal healthcare, which we don't have. Universal healthcare would include mental health care that is accessible and free to everyone. Yeah, that's the whole plan, right? And as far as homelessness goes, to get people into homes. I know. Sounds real simple, right? Now, that is not what LA is doing. That is not what San Francisco is doing. That's not what New York is doing. Nobody's doing it. In fact, that's kind of the problem. No, but he's like, we need to put more money into taking care of the mentally ill. We gotta take care of them, right? And not just say you can live on the streets. But that's not the plan here. The plan would be to have Medicare for all. Okay, that's a progressive plan that again treats mental health. Okay, and for there to be affordable low-income housing to get people off the street and into homes, not just temporary shelters, okay, but into homes. Well, it'd be super, small homes, nothing like super fancy, just like modest, a place to sleep, their own little apartment, right? But apparently, you talk about that, and you've got people that immediately balk at the idea. How dare you? How dare you? But before I get into that, I just want to push back on the assertion here that some progressives are passing laws that want to allow homelessness. What? No. What laws are progressives passing that will allow homelessness? Okay. Can he cite an example? Where it's like, oh no, to progressives, we're going to pass this law, that says totally fine to be homeless, to sleep in the street, whatever, and we're just not going to do anything about it. What? I mean, look, a lot of that is actually just like, hey, we need to solve this issue, but until then, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for us to, destroy encampments and then throw people in prison. Okay? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense here. All right? We actually should, help them and not just throw them in prison. But, apparently that's a law that allows homelessness. All right. Now, as far as the mental health issue goes, and by the way, a lot of people that are homeless, it's really kind of a transitory issue, right? Meaning that, people that are homeless today won't be homeless in like a year, okay? It's really kind of a temporary state of being for most people. Now, you do have those who are chronically homeless, and then again, that's another issue. Well, a lot of people experience homelessness as a result of, like, I don't know, getting priced out, can't really afford it, or got like a medical bill, a medical issue that makes it so that they can't afford. Hey, guess what? Medicare for All would actually solve that too, because then people wouldn't go bankrupt from having a cancer, okay, and lose their house. So it's one of those things that might actually. It turns out healthcare and homelessness kind of do go hand in hand, and not just mental health care. Okay. But anyway, as far as that issue goes, there have been attempts to try to solve that issue. Unfortunately, one of the reasons that LA, for example, has people with mental health issues that end up on the street has to do with Joe Scarborough's hero, Ronald frickin' Reagan. Yes, this is another one of those issues where you can go back and be like, what is the cause of this? Oh, Ronald Reagan. Yeah, back in 1981, President Ronald Reagan actually gutted President Jimmy Carter's Mental Health Systems Act of 1980, which wasn't a perfect solution, right? But it was something. Now, what it would have done is allocated block grants to the states to bolster the establishment and growth of something called community health centers. Okay. So these grants were designed for establishing and expanding community health centers nationwide, which would offer prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation at the community level rather than large institutions. Okay. With a focus on building an accessible mental health care system. Now, this would also set aside funds for research on illness prevention, treatment effectiveness, and the structure of health systems. And the Mental Health Systems Act also stressed the importance of collaboration among state and local governments, as well as between mental health providers, social service agencies, and other community groups, because it acknowledged that meeting the needs of individuals with mental illness required a unified approach involving various disciplines. It also introduced a patient's Bill of Rights, which served as a patient's Bill of Rights specifically tailored for mental health patients. So I'm not saying it was a perfect solution that would have knocked out, mental illness or whatever, right? But it probably would have done something. And at least we would know how effective it could have been if it had been allowed to stay in the place. But we never found out how it could have been effective because just 10 months after it began, Ronald Reagan gutted it. Okay, he signed the Bipartisan Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1981, which significantly reduced federal funding for these community mental health centers. So they shifted the burden of funding these things onto the states. And what did that do? Well, they didn't have enough funding to do their mission. So they just kind of withered and died. That's what happened to these a lot of these community mental health services. Not all of them, right? But obviously there seems to be more need than there is help available, okay, when it comes to mental health. So understand that we would have had a lot more federal funding for mental health care if it weren't for that progressive Ronald Reagan. Insane, right? But no, it's always the fault of the progressives, right? It's always we got to punch left. We got to punch left. We can't punch right. Never, never, never. No, because Ronald Reagan, we love Ronald Reagan. We love him so much. Oh my God, the great Saint Ronnie. It's ridiculous. So what you end up having is in a country where you have no, universal mental health care, doesn't exist, okay, and no affordable housing, you end up having this issue. Gee, I mean, what did you think was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen? This is what progressives have been saying all along. And yet, every time, falling on deaf ears. Nobody listens. Nobody listens at all. Nobody wants to do anything. So you've got establishment warning Joe, who's sitting there punching left, right? Constantly punching left, punching left. And blaming progressives for things that corporate Democrats and Republicans like Ronald Reagan have done. To sit there and watch that, it's maddening. It's maddening. Hey, Joe, you want to find out who did this? Who caused this problem? Look at the freaking mirror. All right? Look at Ronald Reagan. Look, here's the thing. Progressives want to solve the issue. And I'm not saying we have all the answers, but we have some answers. We have some answers that we've never tried before. Like, giving people homes and giving people health care. Never tried those things here in America. Now, look, in other countries, they've given people health care, and guess what? Now everybody has health care, and they don't have the issues that we have, which is medical bankruptcies and people going around with, untreated mental illnesses. We should try, we should try this whole healthcare for everyone thing. I hear it works. I hear it's pretty effective. Only, every other modern country in the world has figured it out, but we haven't. Apparently, it's too difficult. Too difficult. Those stupid ass Americans can't figure it out. Well, that's what the government's telling us, right? That's what the Republicans telling us. Oh, yeah, no, we can. It works everywhere else, but it can't work here. We're giving billions of dollars to Israel. Israel has universal health care. Okay, they can figure it out because they get it from. They can do that because we give them billions of dollars, but we can't figure it out here. No, I know what the real problem is. The real problem is greed. Real problem is greed. Again, we want to solve the issue, right? And again, the thing that is really obvious, that sticks out is, hey, why don't we build some more affordable housing? But of course, every time progressives try to do that, every time you get these NIMBYs, especially in places like California, by the way, where it's NIMBY liberals will come out and say, whoa, 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 whoa. Not my backyard. Why are you building that there? Well, it's going to make my property values go down. Well, I don't want that there. What about the drugs? What about the crime? I don't want all these homeless people on the street. Well, you build affordable housing, they're not going to be homeless. Doesn't matter. And then, of course, you bring up Medicare for all. But I don't want to get rid of my private insurance. You're going to take away my private insurance. You replace it with something much better. That's actually cheaper. Cheaper, more comprehensive, more effective. But no, they're like, I can't do it. Don't you dare touch my health care. It's not your health care, it's your health insurance. They're actually two different things. Look, punching left when the problems are really the fault of corporate America and the right wing, corporate Democrat, it's hilarious. Hilarious. And yet he's like, Joe, getting back to him, we need to put in more money. Okay. But wait, you're the same people who are always saying, we're spending too much money on the poor. Which one is it, Joe? Are we not spending enough money on mental health care? Are we not spending enough money on health care? Actually, you know what? In the United States, we actually spend more on health care than any other industrial modern country. And what are we getting for it? We're getting less. We're getting hosed. It's because our private system has failed. Failed. Privatization failed. Obamacare failed. Prices continue to go up while coverage is trash. Medicare for all. That's the only solution. That's the real solution. All right. And again, I want to solve the healthcare issue. I want to solve homelessness. I want to actually solve homelessness. But understand that people like Scarborough, they don't want to solve it. They want to solve the optics. Meaning, they don't want to see homeless people. That's it. They don't want to see homeless people. They don't want to see people with mental illness because it makes them uncomfortable. Okay? Understand that that's where they're coming from. This is not compassion. It's revulsion. They're revolted by seeing homeless people. They're revolted by seeing people with mental illness. And they just want them gone. They don't want to see them. And maybe they'll be like, well, I guess we'll just throw some money at the problem. Okay, but that's not the solution either. Yes, the solutions that I offer that progressives are actually, calling for would require money. Yes, but it would require spending money smartly on the things that are necessary to solve the problem. Universal health care and guaranteed housing. That's it. And of course, guaranteed housing means, zoning the housing, obviously, and building it. I know. Building lots of affordable housing, except and not condos, okay? Actual, real affordable housing. And yes, it would mean, some people, they're going to get mad because it's going to be in their backyard. Well, unfortunately, that's the solution. But when it comes down to it, the same people, Joe Scarborough, people like that, they're the ones that are out there preventing real solutions from being enacted. They want to throw money at it, but just throwing money aimlessly at it is not going to solve it. You got to do it smart. You got to have the right plan in place. And conservatives and corporate Democrats, the NIMBYs, they don't have actual solutions that are going to work to solve the problem. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.